Good evening, and I want to welcome all of you to Conflict Solutions International discussion with the International Campaign for Tibet. My name is Allison Johnson, and I am very happy to be here with you this evening. I will serve as the moderator, and I am an international political economist by training, and I work as a consultant for Conflict Solutions International. We will begin with a brief introduction of Mary Beth, the organization, and then Mary Beth will have a chance to sit with us and have a chat and talk about the International Campaign for Tibet, the work that they're doing, as well as an update of the uprisings that have happened in Tibet recently, all of the conflict regarding the Olympics and the torch that's been passed around the world, and really the current events as it regards Tibet.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here with you. It's a great pleasure to be speaking to an organization that has conflict resolution in its title. So where are we now? I think people have been riveted to the television. I know I have, especially seeing those two young two young men and a young lady dangling off the suspension cables of the Golden Gate Bridge the other day. As a mother of a 24-year-old, I was just, worried to death that they would fall. But extraordinary demonstration of activism, human rights activism, political activism, solidarity with the Tibetan people, and we've seen it around the world. We saw it in San Francisco most recently, and of course in Paris and in London, and even in Athens when the torch first was lit, then divided into actually two torches, one torch that will travel within China and a second torch that the Chinese intend to showcase internationally. So why have we seen this extraordinary outpouring of emotion? I have to say, I think, quite surprising emotion and even some conflict and some aggression, something that many people don't associate with the Tibet movement. The torch relay, of course, has been planned for years in advance. Beijing, the Chinese government, had permission to host the Beijing Olympics. In 2001, this decision was made, and people who care about human rights in China and Tibet have been looking forward to this torch run for many, many years. But why did it get to be the way that it was really has much more to do with the recent events in Tibet. So let's look and see what happened in Tibet on March 10th, actually a month ago, almost to the day now. There was a demonstration in Lhasa. Monks from the Drepung Monastery, one of the big monasteries, there are three that circle Lhasa, started walking into the city to call for freedoms, human rights, and to support His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, they chose March 10th because March 10th is the anniversary of what the Tibetans commemorate as their Tibetan national uprising. It was the eve of the Dalai Lama's flight from Lhasa into exile in India. And every year on March 10th, the Dalai Lama delivers an address to the people of Tibet from his home, which is now in Dharamsala, India, in northern India, and the foothills of the Himalayas. So His Holiness had given his address, and Tibetans all around the world were commemorating that event, as they always do. In fact, even here in front of the Chinese embassy, there was a demonstration calling for human rights in Tibet. But the Chinese reacted very sternly to this demonstration in Lhasa by the Drepung monks, and things started spiraling out of control. The population of Lhasa took to the streets and in a surprisingly aggressive way. There were acts of vandalism. there were acts of violence, there was loss of life. And I think the world, in fact, the Tibet movement and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I think everyone was taken by surprise at the power of the emotion. Why was this such an emotionally charged moment? Can go back to specifically two reasons, I believe. One is that the rhetoric against His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the regulations constricting religious freedom in Tibet have been intensified since January 2007. So there really was this vilification of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, intensified around several dates, including on the occasion when the Dalai Lama was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal by the Congress. The Chinese took that occasion to really lash out against the Dalai Lama. And the second is this underlying period of repression, acute oppression for more than 20 years. But you have to remember that Tibet has been an occupied nation since the Chinese People's Liberation Army moved into Tibet, in eastern Tibet in 1950, and shortly thereafter into central Tibet. So I know that those Tibetans who have had occasion to speak to the Chinese in official dialogue over the years have been warning of this tension that is building up between the Tibetan and the Chinese people. A railroad was opened in 2006 actually, that crosses the Tibetan plateau all the way to Lhasa and is bringing in by the thousands every week more and more Chinese settlers. The immigration into Tibet without any mechanism for the Tibetan people to make safe their own traditions, and in fact even their own economic livelihood, has been an intense migration. The Tibetans are at a terrible disadvantage here, and it really is this conflict now between policies and peoples that are making the situation worse inside Tibet. So I think that's the unfortunate situation that we are facing now in Tibet. We have seen more than 92 demonstrations, from the demonstration that started in Lhasa throughout the bottom of the central Tibet, which the Chinese government calls the Tibet Autonomous Region. In fact, the map of Tibet has been recreated. The Tibet Autonomous Region established by the Chinese in 1965, and the Tibetan areas on the plateau in the eastern part of Tibet, now part of Yunnan, Gansu, Sichuan, and Qinghai province. So most of these demonstrations, in fact, have taken place in eastern Tibet, outside the Tibet Autonomous Region, which the Chinese refer to as Tibet, and in fact much of the world understands to be Tibet, because the Chinese have been so effective in creating this modern day story.